Buyers are reading the headlines and are getting scared. These new ultra-luxury reconstruction condos are coming out because it creates a comfort and a safety and a security and a simplicity that folks are looking for.
The housing market is actually alive and well, and the luxury market is doing extremely well.
It's like a country club on the ocean. It's very boutique and really gorgeous.
We are getting clickbaited, and every article that comes out is not as much driven to educate us on what's going on, it's to drive clicks.
The real money was in the selling, not the directing.
Welcome back to the Better Decisions podcast. Today I'm with Sep Niakan. You may know him from the website Condo Black Book and its Black Book properties. Sep, this is rather unusual. First time I've actually had a guest on my show who is literally someone is, I want to say direct competition, but someone who's also running a website, dealing with the condo market, analyzing the condo market, very verbal about the condo market. But I actually feel this is probably the perfect opportunity because we are both sitting in this market to openly talk about our own experiences,
Absolutely.
Mine and yours, and what we're seeing.
It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Let's start off, Sep, tell us about where you started from, how you started the business, and why you started it. I always like the why people do what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually started in marketing and web development, so hence condoblackbook.com, right?
Makes sense.
We use the skills we have and keep building on them, right? So I started in real estate. You know, it's kind of a similar story as a lot of people. The idea of owning and selling and buying real estate is just very alluring. And so I figured I had all these skills, and why not apply it to something that was interesting to me? So that's really how I got started. And I actually got into the business as a managing director of another brokerage, which is a little unusual because usually you kind of work your way up. And I learned kind of quickly that the real money was in the selling, not the directing.
Oh, yeah.
So I got into the sales and started condoblackbook.com. I felt there was a need for a website that was focused on condos, structured in a way that a condo buyer and a condo seller could find the information they wanted quickly. And from there, it developed into realizing that people needed more information than just listings and building information, but rather analysis and an understanding of the market, an understanding of the different neighborhoods and so on. And so that kind of got into the same things that you and I both do, the blogs.
Very similar.
The blogs, the videos, giving the consumer what they really want. Because anyone can pretend to sell, but what we want to do is consult and advise and be someone that could be a trusted advisor for people. Yeah. And our sites are an introduction to who we are and the trust that we build trust through the site and the content and the blogs, so that when people call us, they already know us and they already trust us, and we can get to work helping them with their goals.
Beautifully said. I mean, this is really it. This is a consultation, and view this podcast as just one big consultation session. If you're out there, you're trying to figure out what to do in the condo market, you're trying to make sense of it. I developed my system out of just honestly pure frustration. Pure frustration because there was a lack of optics, a lack of education in the market. And now more than ever, and we're going to start with exactly that. The very first question I have for you is addressing the current news, because we're no longer, and this is very important, no longer living in a world where we are getting news. We are getting clickbaited. And every article that comes out is not as much driven to educate us on what's going on, it's to drive clicks. And that means a strong storyline, a strong headline, which may be extreme. So let's get into some of these extreme headlines, because I know that you're going to have an opinion and I want to hear it, and then we'll kind of go through what we're really seeing. So the first one I've got, just diving in, is this article that came out, Mansions Global, the Miami bubble. According to UBS, Miami has the biggest risk of being a bubble market in the world. What do you make of that?
Honestly, I haven't read that particular article, but I'm not surprised. If it bleeds, it leads, right? So you want something that the uglier it is, the more fearsome it is, the more interest, more someone's going to come look at it, right? Yeah. When you start opening those articles and start reading them, you realize that they're actually, for the good quality publications, there's a lot of nuance in there. And all of a sudden it goes from, oh my God, this is the biggest risk, to here's all the reasons people keep moving there, and here's what the stats look like, and it's not really that bad. It's just we're kind of worried about it.
Yeah. That's exactly what the article does. In fact, the headline is really alarming. And then when you start reading, you start realizing they start backtracking really, really quickly. But a lot of people don't really read a full article. They scan. And that's why now, like, I'm sure you're the same. Our style of article writing has had to adapt and change, because I used to write what I consider like white page articles. Like I was like going to be an academic about it. And I love the study side. So, but then I realized people weren't going to read that. They would not be willing to dive in. So now, everything's become a lot more short form. But that article really actually starts saying it's a big bubble risk. And they say, well, actually, there are certain sectors of the Florida market which obviously are lower income areas. Where we're dealing with within Miami, the housing market is actually alive and well. And the luxury market is doing extremely well. It's not a bubble, it's just expensive. And I think that was kind of the conclusion that they kind of started to move towards, even though they started with this, everything is a huge bubble. One of the big things, the big subject, and I think it's probably the overwhelming subject that we've been aware of, so we might as well address it, the rising HOA fees. The reality, and I saw that you did a video on this talking about why rising HOA fees can be a good thing. Touch on that you went through, and you went through the protection needed for these condos so that they are better managed, so we never see another condo collapse.
A couple of years ago, you go and you take a buyer out to look at a property or properties, and they end up liking a unit in two different buildings. And this HOA on building A is 20% or 25% less than the HOA in building B. Equal class of building, equal amenities and services. Why is that? Well, a lot of times it's because one building might have voted down the reserves for replacements, which is basically a gigantic savings account for future repairs. Like, for example, if a roof it needs to be done every 20 years, you start putting in this savings account to build up to 20 years later when the roof needs to be repaired, the money's sitting there ready to be spent. One building would vote down those reserves, and in another building, they had full reserves. So which is the better building? The one that's fiscally responsible and has a proper maintenance and schedule, or the other one who kicks the can down the curb? Now, the new laws, they basically create a situation where there's going to be apples to apples. Every building has to have a reserve study every 10 years, and they have to always fully fund the reserves, and that means also that they have to readjust those reserves every 10 years. And what that does is creates an environment where, one, you can compare, as a consumer, you can compare buildings apples to apples now. And secondly, as a consumer, when you get in and you realize, okay, this is my association fee, these are all my expenses, this is what likely my electric's going to be, and so on, and I know what I'm going to be paying every month for living the lifestyle that I want, you're not going to be worried about 6 months down the road getting a big, gigantic special assessment bill for whatever. Sometimes it's small, $5,000 or $20,000 or $50,000, because the special assessments are being done because there's not these reserves sitting in the accounts because of irresponsible decisions from board members or management companies. And now the laws protect the consumer to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, what does that mean for our market right now? It means that we have a little bit of pain, right? When you go from being fiscally irresponsible or maybe not having a stringent framework for maintenance, and then you go into having those things, you have to go through a small period of pain so that when everything finally equalizes and normalizes. And that's what we're going through right now. So you're seeing a little bit more special assessments. You're seeing higher association fees as everyone goes into the full reserves mode. Like, okay, we're saving for the future so that we don't have to special assess later.
Yeah, I view it like the medicine that you need. You don't want to take it. It doesn't taste very good, but you need it for your health. Yeah. The question is, when does it go from you need medicine to you're on life support because no amount of medicine's going to fix that? And I notice, obviously, I think one of the tipping points, and this is part of being a responsible broker and a responsible advisor and a consultant, is that when we view it and clients come to, when they come to you and they come to me and they say, all right, I'm thinking about buying in this building. It is not as simple. And I can't stress this enough. It's not that simple to just say, look at the HOA fee and try to choose the building with a lower HOA fee, because the cheap becomes expensive. And I noticed this in the past where, and I've seen it even with new construction, there is quotes coming out even on new buildings, and that's a different animal, but quotes coming out for a new building saying, oh, it's going to be $1.30, it's going to be $1.20. We have a history of developers subsidizing their HOA fees. And if you notice, Sep is smiling right now because he knows exactly what I'm talking about, and you should want to know too. Those fees that they come out with a number and we know it's going to get raised because it's just not sustainable. You cannot feed a family of 5 with a packet of peanuts. It's just not going to work. Sooner or later, you're going to have to, raise those costs. And I think that when you look into the P&Ls and the annual costs and you look at all these assessments coming out, you kind of understand, all right, so this is for the old buildings necessary. For the new buildings, be aware that the numbers can change. They almost will have to. And know where the true numbers are. And I think there's an estimate. Well, what is your opinion right now on where HOAs should be balanced, or what you're seeing between new condos and old condos, where the HOA fees kind of generally sit for a good building? Not like a terrible, got to tear it down, it's so bad, we got to scrap it, but livable older buildings that still have life.
It still runs the gamut, and the dust hasn't settled on it. So it's hard to say. I mean, you go into the ultra luxury boutique, 50, 60, 70 unit buildings, and you're talking, well over $2 a foot.
Some of them $3.
Even $3, yeah. And then you go into sort of existing buildings right now, and it's starting to settle in at like $1.10, $1.30, $1.40 a foot kind of range. The existing sort of 10, 15, 20-year-old type buildings. But I think that the dust hasn't settled for me, but what's your take on it?
My feeling is I'm kind of in line. I always see that the HOA fees really need to settle somewhere between, they have to be at least $1. Anything under $1 raises massive alarm bells for me. So, and I think honestly, depending on the building, the size of the building is between $1 to $2 a square foot. But that's only part of the story. I want to see the reserves. I want to know the spends. I want to look at the assessments, and I want to understand what is down the horizon for that building, because a raised fee by an extra 20 cents, 10 cents here, that's not really going to hurt your pocket a lot for a year or two. But $100,000 or $200,000 assessment, you're going to notice that. That's going to hurt. And I think those are the ones that start to get into that point where the older buildings, where it becomes, can they afford to pay this? And then at what point do the buildings they become susceptible to being torn down and replaced?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to address that. It's that there's these news stories about buildings, and frankly, my parents live in one of them. They're going to get they're getting a $160,000 special assessment. So it is real, and it does impact folks like people in my family, right? But they are extreme cases, and it's a lesson in really accepting and embracing these new laws, which are designed so that the can doesn't get kicked down the street so far that you have to worry about a $160,000 special assessment. Penny wise, pound foolish is basically what's happened.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, again, if we're talking about the luxury market, if you have a $3 million condo and someone comes to you and says, "Hey, we're going to assess you $100,000," the question becomes, first of all, as a percentage, it's a much lower percentage.
Yeah, it's you can digest that.
Yeah,
you've got the money, probably you can digest that.
And then the question is, what are we getting for that money? So we can't look at special assessments as automatically a horrible thing. Special assessments and any kind of investment, whether it was budgeted for or not budgeted for, doesn't matter. The question is, what is it that you're getting for that? There are buildings, my building right now, there's been talk of special assessments. But the special assessments are to make upgrades to make our condo more competitive in the luxury market.
Which as a buyer, and I wanted to interject on this, as a buyer, this gives legitimacy to the next buyer who might, let's say if you're looking to buy one of those units and you're looking at a unit and you're saying, all right, there's a special assessment. If that assessment makes your condo more competitive in the market for reselling in the future, then that's a good thing. You're upgrading that condo to the point where when you buy, and I think there are good examples of that you go through, you buy that unit that needs an assessment, you pay that assessment, but when you come out the back end, when that pool is upgraded, the gym's upgraded, the lobby's upgraded.
Value add.
You've got real value add, and it brings you back into competition with that higher level product that previously you might have had challenges with before. I think a good example is like Grosvenor House in Coconut Grove. They're getting upgrades now, and I think they're redoing their whole pool area. That's going to make them more competitive in the future because there isn't enough product in that market to really, for it to become a problem. I think it's going to still be, it's still a good building, still has great units, great views. Other times I think it'll just, if it's just because the car park's collapsing, that's like that's the bare minimum. But at that point, you're not making yourself more competitive. No one's going to go, oh, I'm glad I'm in a building now where the car park isn't going to collapse.
Exactly.
I want to really get into the next phase because everybody wants to know this. We sell a lot of new construction and we talk about the luxury market and we deal with the luxury market.
Can I just interject
just
one thing? The concept of having to spend money to preserve your property is something that is just part of ownership.
Yeah.
Houses have special assessments. No, I don't. I don't have special assessments. I don't have an HOA. I spend what I want when I want. Do you?
Yeah.
When your roof has a leak and you patch it and then it leaks again and you patch it and then finally you realize you have to spend $40 or $60 or $80,000 replacing your roof, that's a special assessment.
Do you live in a house or a condo, Seth?
I live in a condo.
Sep. You live in a condo.
Yeah.
Okay. I live in a house. Yeah. And I wanted to interject just a little interesting story. I used to have a prejudice where I would come in and I was naive enough that I would say houses are far more affordable than condos because HOA fees on a 5,000 square foot, 6,000 square foot house is always going to be, managing that house is going to be less because I've got insurance and I've got taxes, but I don't have HOA fees. Yeah. Right, I learned something. My house is great. It's a new house. It's 3 years old. But the amount of money that I spend on special assessments, which I love the way you coined it like that because it's true. It might be fixing an AC, having to deal with mold because one of the ducts broke in the attic, or some of the paneling went off from the side of the house, or a tree fell down in the backyard and I have to get that removed. There's a dozen things that can happen. It's just a slower trickle of assessments over a longer period of time rather than waiting for it to build up. It's just month after month. Every month I feel I have a special assessment.
And your association fees, quote unquote, are your landscaper, your electric, the extra electric costs that you have for your heated pool.
Yeah.
It's the pool guy.
Yeah.
And
even things like having a home.
And your insurance is in a condo. A chunk of the fee is the insurance, and of course you have insurance at home too.
And the housekeeper, and the time you spend, which is why I think there is psychologically, and I think you've seen this too. And before we get into the market as we see it, what we like and what we don't like, I've seen a bigger shift than ever before of people going for these big condos now, because the home is great, but it's massively labor intensive. It's constant work, and it's not as convenient as it is to have a condo. And as we get older, time is our biggest asset. So if we spend our time wisely, we're happy. If we don't, then we're not. And I think that's one of the big things that I see, why I'm seeing the types of clients who are buying these big condos. They're a little bit more mature, the kids are a little bit older, they just don't need the big house. They don't want the headache of the big house. And if they can have that replicated in a condo, then why not?
Yeah, but we've been talking with my wife about getting into a home for 10 years, single family home. And yet we're still today in a condo, and it's a running joke. And I want to be in a house because I have not been in a house for a very long time. I've been living in condos for 25 years now. And I just think it would be a nice change and it'd be good for the kids and so on. But my wife resists it. Why? Security. If I'm away on a trip, business trip, she might feel uncomfortable in the house. Maintenance. Sep, are you going to really go and repair the stuff that needs repaired or manage all that? And it goes on and on. And so I like the idea of a house, and I think I would like to live in a house soon myself. But to your point, there's a lot of really comfortable reasons why people choose a condo, a large condo, which is why all these new ultra luxury pre-construction condos are coming out, because it creates a comfort and a safety and a security and a simplicity that folks are looking for. You know, life can be draining and complex, especially when you have money, right? Mo money, mo problems.
Yeah.
And so simplifying it in your home makes it really comfortable, especially if it's a second or third or fourth home, right?
Yeah, I think when you get to a second, third, fourth property, condos make up. I just don't see the logic of having a home as a second, third, or fourth property. That's just me. And I love, by the way, I love living in a house. I adore it. It's amazing. I really enjoy it, and I'm not ready for a condo yet, but I'm sure there'll be a time when I will. And again, the demographic variety that we have in South Florida at the luxury level is interesting now because it's not what it used to be. One of the things, as a demographer, my background is economics, specializing in demography. The demographic studies that I look at, and when I look at the profile of the buyers, and again, I want to get your understanding of what profile buyers and sellers you're dealing with. What I'm seeing with my profile is that it's really varied. It's luxury level. Of course, the universal truth is that they've all got money. The differentiator is the fact that some of them travel and they're here for some of the time and then they're leaving because they've still got offices back in New York or California. Some are here with families, but you know the kids are maybe getting a little bit older and so they don't need the house anymore, or maybe they do need the house, whatever the variable is. Or they're young professionals, again, high earners, making money, don't have kids. Or they're completely retired. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They've got money, but they want to be in, let's say in the Grove or somewhere like that. It's the commonality is that there's actually a really, really broad spectrum of luxury buyers that exist in Miami today, more than I think ever before, which is one of the reasons why I think reading this market is not so straightforward and shouldn't be taken as a one-size-fits-all. Here's your luxury market. Everyone looks, acts, and wants exactly the same thing, because they absolutely don't. So let's get into the current market. The current market with the product itself, because I'm sure now people are just dying to know, like, okay, you know the market, you've illustrated, you know the psychology, you know the numbers. Right now, let's start with new construction. What's the product out there in the market that you like the most? Give me your top 3 condos and why. And it can be different reasons for different things. There's no like, they're all the same profile, but just give me 3 buildings that you like and tell me why.
I think in Sunny Isles, I like the St. Regis.
Okay.
It's got a variety of floor plans. They're kind of messing with them a little too much maybe, but they keep shifting them around to make it work for again, the variety of buyers and a variety of buyer needs. I think it's gorgeous architecturally. And then when you go a little bit further down from that, I find Rivage very interesting. It's like a country club on the ocean.
Bal Harbour, yeah.
Except, no golf course, of course, but other than that, it feels like a country club on the ocean. It's very boutique and really gorgeous. When it comes to the greater downtown area, the Mandarin, I think, really hits the spot because of its unique location, the brand itself, and the combination of having a residential property that's strictly residential, but with a hotel adjacent, not incorporated, but adjacent, so that you really get truly the best of all worlds. Whereas some of these other brands that are residents only offer the service that the brand comes with, like, for example, St. Regis Residences or the one in Brickell or the one in Sunny Isles. But there's not it's not a hotel, doesn't have a hotel component, which is good, but it doesn't, then it's hard to replicate the true like dynamic services and experience that being truly adjacent to a hotel, an actual hotel.
True resort living.
Yeah.
Without being in a hotel.
Without being in a hotel.
I look, I don't know, I almost feel I have to say it. I've said this so many flipping times. Luxury resort living at scale is really what it's about. Any other notable, mention-worthy names, and then I'll get into the resale stuff.
I have to tell you, I'm a little bit partial to the D&G, just because
tell me, because I have
I don't. Why
do you like D&G?
I don't.
Not that I don't say I don't, but I just
no. But for me, what it is it's just more of an emotional thing than a logical thing. I don't wear luxury brands, like a flashy type luxury brand.
You don't strike me as the guy wearing D&G.
I'm not. And yet the design style and it's a little over the top, a little bit. All the adjectives are escaping me right now. What D&G brand represents and how they're integrating it into the condo building there, I find very alluring.
Yeah,
I really.
It's very lush as trying to help you with some adjectives here. It's a very rich, lush brand. It's very opulent. The whole
opulence
brand
is the perfect word.
Kind of
it's opulent. And maybe I'm just admiring it from afar. Maybe I wouldn't live there myself. I don't know, but I find it different. And in a market as dynamic as ours, you need differentiation. You need different product for different kinds of people. And so, I can appreciate what they're doing there.
Before we get, and I want to get into the resale stuff.
What about?
You want to know my opinion?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are the places that you?
So I've done my top 10, but I'm going to kind of highlight them through, the ones I really like, and I'll tell you why. So, just because you mentioned Sunny Isles, I'll go up into Sunny Isles as well. I agree with you. I like St. Regis the most up in Sunny Isles, mainly because I like it more than the competition. I think Sunny Isles has always been the most affordable neighborhood for being on the beach, and I think its affordability to being on the sand is something that, it's attractive. Some people just want to be absolutely on the sand. I think there's a lot of competition in Sunny Isles. I think actually out of the resale market, there's serious competition coming from buildings like Aquilina, which is that's a fierce piece of competition there, because that's resort living on scale right there. I mean, they've got like 12 acres or whatever they've got. It's like an insane level of amenities in that project. And dollar per square foot, I think they're kind of matching in the same arena right now as what St. Regis is being in. But I kind of agree with you there. In Bal Harbour and that kind of North Beach area, I'm just going to throw it out there. A little different. I like the Bal Harbour area, but I also like, as you go a little bit more south, I like Paragon. I like Rivage. I don't dislike Rivage at all, actually. I like Rivage. Yeah. If you want to be in Bal Harbour, I think that's the obvious choice. It's the only choice when you get into Bal Harbour. But I like Paragon. I like the boutiqueness of it. I kind of like what they did when 87...
My wife, that's the favorite.
She likes that. Yeah. It's money. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, it kind of reminds me, 87 Park is a stellar building. And to me, it's like the updated, newer version of 87 Park. So if you were an 87 Park buyer, I feel like you should be looking at Paragon. And obviously, if you look at 87 Park, right now, actually, the penthouse is listed for 50 million. So... that's high luxury. Once you get into the urban corridor, I'm with you 100%. My number one is Mandarin. It's so easy for it to be number one. It's just it's so far ahead of everyone else. At the same time, I also realize that it's expensive. So I kind of know that within that area, let's drop down a little bit, and let's say you don't have more than 5 million to spend. In that, let's say that 1 to 3 mark, because I know that people are going to be watching you two guys, you're talking about the most expensive stuff in the world. I can't afford that. But if I was to spend in, let's say, 1 to 3, what do you like in the 1 to 3, the more affordable product?
I don't have a very strong opinion. What's your take?
I kind of like some of the affordability I see at 1428. I like how they're putting that together. I was a little dubious about how that project would come together, because the finish level that they're going for is super high up. I'm true. Wow, that is incredibly well finished. Are you going to be able to pull that off? But they've already broken ground. They're already starting. So I'm like, maybe. And I think it's very possible, because they're so fast out of the ground compared to everyone else. I really think they might be able to pull it off. If they can get the right labor in and they've got the right guys on the project site, they pull this off, great. I know the views will get slightly obstructed with the building in front, but I do think that could be, a good option. I like Cipriani as well. I think for the money, I think Cipriani is, a consideration. And then there's a few, boutique things around that I'm going to like. Actually, there's a new one that we're bringing into the Grove, which I'm directly involved with. So I can, you want to know about that, you have to call me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you about that. So
1428, I do really like the kitchens that open and close, the glass enclosed kitchens on the larger units. I think that's really, really nice. I think that the style, generally the style that is appealing to me, and 1428 does it, I think it's sort of pretty much on trend in most of the buildings, is that sort of organic, modern feel. With the fluted wood and all those things. And
it's just richer. I think they've recognized the New Yorkers are not going to buy the white glass floors and the white plain kitchen and the white cabinet, and it's just going to be, and everything that's just too kind of shiny. Mm-hmm. It's like that. Just everything's. I felt there was a period of time when they built new product. It was just shiny stuff. And I'm like, this is way too shiny. Like, can you just get a bit of class into this? I think that's better now. Mm-hmm. And obviously, there's some really wild stuff. There's like Fisher 6 out there on Fisher Island, which is like super, super high end. And then obviously, I know there's going to be more product to come down the line.
Yeah, I find Ora by Casa Tua somewhat alluring as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I drew a blank a little earlier, but Ora by Casa Tua, it feels like a very alive building. It's going to have mixed in retail and restaurants, and so it's sort of a resort / urban living, where you can almost like not ever leave your building. Think of it sort of like this is maybe not the best example, but it's like the modern version of the 1980 something DoubleTree Grand without the hotel component, right?
Okay.
If you go to the Grand, I don't know if you've been there recently.
Yeah, I have.
And it has.
Well, I know it, but I haven't been there for a while.
It's an old style approach to it, but it has lots of restaurants inside of it, like convenient things like hair salons and things like that. And I feel like Ora by Casa Tua, especially on the culinary aspect of it, is hitting that mark.
Yeah, okay, do well. You know how busy Casa Tua is in Brickell City Centre. Mm-hmm. That place is buzzing like 24/7. Every time I go in there, I'm shocked. I'm like, how is this place packed every second of every moment of every day? When you measuring up measuring up the developers, like you get the project. I think this is a good example. We get the call from the client. You get a call from a client, I get a call from a client. They're like, hey, I want to buy new construction. I want to buy a condo. Not sure what I want. Don't know exactly where I want to be. I need you to explain the geography, explain the buildings. How are you weighing up the developers? Like when they start talking about, the developers, what do you pay attention to when you're taking the client in and you're looking at a project for the first time and everything's going to look impressive?
First, the developer, of course, the track record, right? Yep. Who are they? What have they built? That gives you a clue about them. Sometimes folks make a shift in their strategy or the part of the market that they focus on, but that does give you a clue. Then, of course, you have things that are sort of second level to that, which is who else is on the team, which is the architect, the designers, and so on. Why is that important? Because that gives you a clue into the sensibilities and of how they're going to go about the project aesthetically, and the sort of philosophy and an approach of what you can expect in terms of the feeling of what's delivered to you, not just the materials, but also the feeling. Because renderings are renderings, but ultimately when you walk into a place, it's alive, it's real.
Someone built that physical property, so it's going to be how it came together. Yeah,
and so you have sort of the usual suspects of teams and architects and so on, and then you have the not so usual suspects, and then if you research into their history and their aesthetics and their philosophies, it can give you a clue as to what kind of product might be delivered. And I think that's one of the reasons probably why a building like Mandarin is so attractive to us, because it has some of that unusual element and differentiation in it of who's involved.
Credibility.
And then there's the behind the scenes, which no one pays attention to.
Let's get into the behind the scenes, because this is where I put it. This is where the
which I know you got a pretty good deep dive on it.
This is where the good agents, the guys who really know their stuff. Sep really knows his stuff. I like to think I know my stuff too. This is where we actually earn our dollars, because we know the questions to ask and we know how to make them wriggle a little bit, and we know what to kind of dig into. So yeah, you're right. It's digging. But so behind the scenes, what do you mean by, just for those, I know what you mean, but they don't know what you mean. What do you mean by behind the scenes?
First, the general contractor. The different general contractors do have different reputations, and some are known entities and some are not known entities, as you and I have discussed. Beyond that, there's things that the financial standing of who's involved and what the structure, where they are in their groundbreaking, what's their financial arrangement with the banks. Sometimes we have that information clear. Sometimes we have roughly, we know what it is, or historically based on experience, we know how the game is played. And so we can factor all that in. And of course, sometimes that factors into negotiations as well, as you know, when they're more or less negotiable and so on. But what's your take on that?
I will tell you that when I look into it, it's the key people at the table, the people who are behind those people, the people who are behind those people too, but the relationships they have with each other. And what do I mean by that? What is the relationship of the developer with the brand that they're representing? Is it, and I won't name names, but there is a couple, where the relationship that they've had is nothing more than a very vague licensing agreement, and the involvement of the brand has been near minimal, like nothing, like visiting a job site twice in the space of 3 years by key people from the company who basically said, we'll let you use our brand name, you pay us a chunk of money, and we'll leave you the hell alone, and then you do your thing, right? That is misdirection, because then the representation of the brand or the brand building is like, we are representing so-and-so. And because they represent ultra luxury, and that luxury is defined out there in the marketplace, their MO is quality, consistency, high-level engineering, incredible craftsmanship, great attention to detail. But the actual brand itself really has zero or very little, almost nothing to do with that particular development. So there's no translatable value in the end. And then, as you said it, the general contractor, hiring the right GC. Just like building a house, if you actually equate building a condo to building a house, what do? You get an architect. You make sure the architect comes up with a clear direction of what they're going to do. And they're working closely with the GC. Then from the GC, who are his subs? Who's he subbing out to? Who are the builders? Who are the people on the site? Who are the guys doing the drywall? The guy doing the flooring? Who's the guy doing the lighting? All those things. And how used to working together are they? Are they a group that they've never worked together? How familiar are they? How much money is being spent? How much money has to be spent? Where's the money coming from? How leveraged is that developer? Did they borrow money to buy the land, or did they buy it cash? Of course, Mandarin, they've owned the land already. How much leverage do they need to start construction? How deep are their pockets? How reliant are they on the mortgage for the construction, and how influenced are they by the current interest rate? Because once the interest rate drops, they want to get on with construction. But until it drops, they don't want to. They want to kick the can down the street.
Did you notice that a lot of groundbreaking is happening right now as interest rates did a dip?
Well, that's weird, isn't it? Like, what are the odds of that happening? Perfect points.
Locking the loans.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly it. We know exactly why they start groundbreaking. And then, obviously, as you go through the process, the contracts, as you look at these contracts, and I've got next week, I've got a guy on I've got Greg Herkowitz coming on the podcast. We have absolutely ripped apart a lot of our pre-construction contracts, added addendums into them, points, really made it clear. Because, you look at the pre-construction contract, the Greenberg-Torrig one, and it's so one-sided. I mean, if you just read it at face value, no one wants to sign those. It's scary. Yeah. But that's why you have to start to tweak them and adjust them and make them work for you.
And the developers have gotten a lot more flexible. Well, flexible is maybe a strong word, but they're definitely willing to make changes.
Yeah.
More so than before, because when they were selling $500,000 and $1 million condos in buildings that were 400 units, it's a different economy or a different scale that they have to work with. But now, if you're selling $7 million and up unit in a 80 unit condo building, each unit is a slightly different negotiation across the board.
Yeah, the more expensive condos, the more leverage your clients will have. And that's why actually both of us I represent multiple buyers in any one building at any one moment in time. Why is that powerful? Because it means that I'm like, you're either going to make all of them happy or all of them unhappy. And either you're going to get all my clients or you're not going to get any of them. The choice is yours. And then once you've got that number of contracts, you've got leverage. I can go into my meetings now with developers and I'm like, look, keep me and my guys happy, or I walk with like a dozen guys and they're like, oh yeah, we want to work with you. And that you can't do if it's like you're negotiating a $300,000 apartment somewhere. But when you're negotiating, $100 million of transactions, you got some control at the table. I like your point about the general contractors, because there's a few cases of contractors that were hired that were not the big guys. And again, we know Coastal, Moss, these are the big construction groups out there. And then obviously who else was working in conjunction with them? You hire any of the unknowns, and we've seen it with a number of buildings that get massive delays. Yeah. Because it just doesn't. It's like having the bad general contractor on the job site.
I do want to interrupt for 1 second. I want to acknowledge that I really appreciate the attitude and the approach you have to how you do business, and that your goal is to focus on the client being happy and the client getting what they want. That's not how all brokers operate in this business. I don't want to tell the other side of the story, but it's very what's the word?
Refreshing.
Commendable and refreshing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, look, likewise, the reason we're doing this is because I admire you as a professional. And this is not kind of a kumbaya session between the two of us. We're not going to start bro hugging.
Just a 1 minute kumbaya.
A little bromance going on. But I think it is important to say, but I think there is a lot of agents out there, both in-house agents and outside agents who are bringing buyers, who don't choose or want to look under the hood. They don't want to know. All they want is to get paid. And there is a sycophantic, this is great, that's great, this is great, that's great. I don't care what you buy as long as you buy something, as long as I get paid. They have like commission breath. As they call it, and that sadly, like, it happens a lot. So if you're going to hire someone who doesn't, dare I say it, who doesn't need the deal that badly. I don't need any deal that badly. Both of us do a good book of business. We don't need the deal. What we do want is the long-term relationship, because I'm sure your buyers come through. You get one buyer, and you suddenly find yourself with a recommendation for another buyer and another buyer and another buyer, and so it snowballs. Moving on, kind of like the final piece I want to get into, just the final bit again is I want you to tell me a little bit about, as we move out of the new construction product. What do you like about the resale market? I mean, again, the resale market, I feel like these are interchanged. The new construction, the resale, they're part of one system, so you can't have one without the other. What do you like? What condos do you like in the resale market now? What are your favorites? And then we'll get into like where you see the market and how that's doing.
In Edgewater, I'm partial to the building I live in, Paramount Bay.
Okay.
It's always had a really good reputation, and they're constantly looking to, like I mentioned before, upgrade, and they're conscious that they're not living in a vacuum, that they're living in a greater market, and they want to be always maintain the reputation they have and the luxury level that they have as the market develops and all this new product comes out. Of course, Elysee has to be mentioned in Edgewater as well, just because they really did a great job with the amenities, the lobby, the design, the units, the floor plans. Unfortunately, they had the garage fiasco a little bit. That's not ideal, but they're close to mostly resolved. As far as Brickell, I guess because I've been in the you and I have been in business for a long time, I tend to get my heart gets captured by some of those original buildings that captured my heart. And so there's still, regardless of the new product that comes out, I still keep thinking about them.
Like
they may not be in their glory days, but I believe that the essence of the buildings have a great future if properly continue to be managed. The Santa Maria building in Brickell, right? Ugo Colombo has always just done a great job.
I agree.
Jade, I think they did a pretty good job. They built a building that is still standing the test of time. It's great location.
It's affordable. It's about $1 per square foot in the Jade is somewhere, what, 1,100, 1,200?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, so it's a good value, and you know, it was one of Fortune's first product, and wow, I mean, for their first product, they did a pretty good job. In the Grove, of course, you know, you and I know that you will agree with me. You know, Park Grove, they really just hit it out of the park.
Yeah, I've done a few deals in that building over my years.
You've killed it over there. You know, the Grove in general, the buildings, the newer buildings they've put out there are really something special.
You've got a good solid. I mean, the Grove market for condos. My God,
Gorgeous.
what the performance of that market. Because it's not a big market. It's only about 5% of the product, and 10% of the product in the whole of the Grove is condos. Yeah. And what you do have, Park Grove, Grove at Grand Bay, Grosvenor House. Mm-hmm. These are solid buildings. I mean, it's, again, another Ugo Colombo building. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ugo does a good product. First guy I ever had on my podcast, but does a good product. It's Bristol, Santa Maria, Grosvenor. Anything on the beach that you like?
The Ritz Sunny Isles, they hit that out of the park.
I like that too. The 05 line especially.
Yeah, they hit that out of the park.
Rock in your view.
Just the location, but they just really did everything right in that building.
Yeah.
As far as the beach, I'll let you take over the beach. My partner and wife Stephanie, she's the beach gal more than me. I'm not a gal, I'm a guy, but you know what I'm saying. So I'll let you take over the
beach.
Your
For me,
the
beach market, I have always, as I move from north to south, I agree with you. I look. If money was no object, I like the scale of Aquilina. I like big units because I live in a house and I like the scale of it, and I like the views. And I think that having access to, I'm a gym freak, so I like good gyms and nice pools and nice restaurants, and so Aquilina's great. I think that I get very line specific. I kind of start to get. There are certain lines in buildings that I really like. I like the Ritz. I like the 05 line, obviously, because you've got that unencumbered view to the south, which just looks all the way south, which is really hard to replicate. I think there's only 2 buildings or 3 buildings on the whole beach that can give you that kind of effect. Ritz is one, and then of course 87 Park with that view to the south, which is just stunning. Mm-hmm. And then of course once you get down to Continuum south of 5th, when then you're looking over the cut. So yeah, on the beach, I mean, Continuum to this day still, because they've got so much land. It's resort living without the hotel. That's still such a great product. Again, you've got to be in the right building. You've got to be in the South Tower, overlooking the cut, and it's got to be a remodeled unit. I like that. I like 87 Park. As I said,
South Beach, I like Apogee just because it's so darn exclusive.
Apogee is very good. Apogee is good. It's. I mean, again, this is an expensive building, yes. But again, it's super exclusive. On the mainland, yeah, I mean, much like you, I notice in the Edgewater, I have less of the product that I'm kind of dancing around with. It's not until I get into Brickell. Mm. I think the Four Seasons is still stunning in Brickell. I think it's the amenities and the package of that building are good. I agree with you. I like Santa Maria and Bristol Towers. I think that's excellent. I'm not hating the 01 line in Aston Martin, and again, there's some stuff that I don't like, but I kind of that line is it's piquing my curiosity. Let's put it like that for the moment. The Grove, look, I'm a Grove guy. I mean, for me, Park Grove A-line Tower 1, that is the billionaire's line. That's as good as it gets. So if you want to live in the closest thing to being in a house and you want to be in prime Grove location, A-line Tower 1. There's actually one coming up soon, which is going to be...
One just listed yesterday, AB combo.
The AB combination? Yeah, that's... You listed one yesterday?
No,
there's one listed yesterday. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, those ones are really, really excellent. And then after that, then I jump into like loving the new stuff, like you. The state of the market, interestingly enough, getting into that for a few seconds before we wrap this up. a lot of people have been talking about the current state of the market being soft, things being slow, things not moving as well. Directly because you're dealing with clients and buyers and sellers every day. Less of what's happening, more about the psychology. What are people saying to you out in the market right now? What are you hearing?
Buyers are reading the headlines and are getting scared. Or not scared, some hesitant. So there's a sense of lack of urgency is what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. And then if you really go out into the resale market, what you see is not as much fall in love product as there should be.
Beautifully said.
And so what does that mean? Obviously, if you're selling Park Grove, it's fall in love, as it is, because it's only a couple years old. But if you go into the buildings that are built in 2007, 2010, 2012, those buildings, the buildings themselves, need to be properly maintained and upgraded at ongoing. But the units, when someone comes into a unit, if you want them to buy it, you need to make it fall in love quality for them. And so that means investing the time and the money into doing strategic upgrades and making it a canvas that someone can imagine their life in, without them having to spend their time and headache and money in getting it to where they need it to be.
Yeah, I agree. The lack of optionality is lacking.
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
No.
Sorry, I was interrupting you there for a second.
No, go ahead.
Just you get my head moving because I mirror what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I feel the same way. There is definitely a lack of optionality, and I think that sellers watching this, you need to raise your game. You need to make sure that your product looks good, it's cleaned, it's tidy, it's well painted, it's well staged. It's really going to give some sense of like, I want this. It's got to make it like a home, not like just a condo or a house. It's got to have some personality to it.
It has to be differentiated from the other ones that are similar in the market.
Yeah, an empty unit. If you want to sell an empty unit, then go right ahead, but you're stupid. I'm sorry, stupid. I'm going to say it. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're going to take it seriously, get to your property, finish it out, stage it out, make it look good. I understand there are things that kind of sometimes are hard to digest because staging costs money, although I split those costs with my clients. But I do believe that it does make a huge difference. It's very important. And I think you're right. You're exactly right. People are hesitant. They're circling. It's not that they don't want to buy. They just are having a really hard time finding something that ticks all the boxes. And the optionality is limited, which is, I think, why so many people move into the new condo product to buy, because it's giving them what they want. The actual stats, I ran this before we met because I think it would be a useful way to kind of finish up. Mm-hmm. The number of sales from Q3 this year to last year, there was actually 18% more sales in the 3 to 5 million range. In the 5 to 10, there was 9% less sales. And the $10 million plus range, there was 27% number of sales increase.
And this is condos and single family combined?
This is just condos. This is just condos in Q3 2024 compared to Q3 in 2023. Okay. Which was surprising because I thought, oh really? It actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But I think the reason why that is as follows. The number of listings that came online has increased. In the 3 to 5 range, we saw 15% more listings month on month through Q3. In the 5 to 10 range, we saw 20% more listings month on month. And the $10 million plus range, we saw 60% more month on month, which meant the optionality was greater, which means there was more luxury product available, which is why there was 27% more sales.
Makes sense.
Which I can only conclude means that the buyers are there, they want the product, and when they can find it, they'll buy it. But if they can't find it, they won't. The dollar per square foot didn't really move much. In the low range, they stayed the same. The 5 to 10, they went up by 5%. The $10 million plus, they went up by 16%. Again, high level product. Mm-hmm. But we saw a lot of sales. We saw sales. There was a number of strong sales across the beach. There was 3 sales over $5,000 a square foot. There were 7 sales over $4,000 a square foot on the beach. The Grove saw 3 of its highest sales in history. I was party to one of those.
Congrats.
Thank you. And 6 of the 10 highest sales ever recorded were on the beach. So the market is still alive and well at the luxury end. And I think it all comes down to availability and optionality. And the key, and I think we can finish on this, is finding a broker or working with a broker who can find that product, because it may not necessarily be on the MLS. It requires digging. It requires relationships. It requires dialogue. You hold product, I hold product. And this kind of conversation should hopefully illustrate that the players at the top of the game, who are really invested in putting the clients front and center, looking after their interests rather than their own, will openly have dialogue. And hopefully this blog, this podcast, is a testament to 2 big players within the condo market having honest dialogue. And I'm sure that and hope that this conversation will continue. Our relationship will grow. We will share information with each other. We will share product with each other. And we will find more of those products and those condos that the clients need and want.
Yeah, and you know, you're reflecting on the buy side, and on the sell side, it's going with a broker that understands the product that the buyers are looking for and guides you and helps you present your property and prepare your property so that you can sell it faster and for the higher price that you would like.
100%. And I know that when you have a listing and you call me and say, David, I've got a brand new listing, I'm going to come and see that listing. And I know vice versa, because we both know that we have the clients. And again, we'll make these deals happen. Sep, thank you for doing this podcast. It's been great, honestly.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's been great to hold up a mirror and see how our lives are mirroring each other and what we're experiencing and seeing on a day-to-day and week basis. Thank you again. I'm sure this won't be the last time we meet. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Better Decisions podcast. New episode coming next week. Thank you.